Now, one of the things that I think this should teach us as a country, with all the anti-government rhetoric, why do we need government? Government is the problem. How about we consider how inadequately we have been funding government and public health? The CDC budget is $11 billion, 1.5% of our defense budget, $738 billion. Dr. Redfield, do you think our country would have been safer if, let's say, we had twice the CDC budget, if we had put it at 3% of our national defense budget in our capacity?
Thank you, Congressman. I think it's important to realize that for decades, we've underinvested in the public health infrastructure of this nation. As many of you know, CDC's funding that we get from Congress, about 70% of it goes out to local and state, territorial and tribal health departments. They're the backbone of our health system. And if anything, I think you can look, I would rather see during my legacy to help over-prepare our nation's public health system with what I call the core capabilities of data modernization and predictive analysis, laboratory capacity at the local public health labs, making sure we have the human personnel in the public health communities, the rapid response fund that we're very appreciative that Congress gave us, and build a global health security platform for the 2030, 2050.
And Dr. Redfield, while you have the country's attention, how much would that cost? Because right now we're spending, I think most people realize this is a national security issue. And we're putting 1.5% into the CDC of the defense budget. The NIH budget is $41 billion, which is less than 5% of national security. I mean, why isn't there a bipartisan call to double these budgets, triple these budgets? I mean, what would you ask the American people and Congress to prepare?
I appreciate the opportunity, Congressman, and I'd have to get back to you with an exact estimate of all that for you.
Dr. Fauci, do you have a view?
Yeah, I mean, we've been well funded at the NIH, but I think that we need to continue to have a consistent well funding. What happens is that there's inconsistency at times, but luckily over the last 4 or 5 years, the Congress has been quite generous with us.
One question I do have is the WHO had tests, and some of the other countries use these tests. Why shouldn't we be using these tests?
I think it's important to understand about the key for approving tests in this country from other countries. They can go ahead and apply through the FDA and get registration and be dispersed. Obviously, one of the reasons we developed the test that we developed was to try to make it as available as rapidly to the American public for public health. So I would defer that question to the Commissioner at what the exact hoops are for the foreign companies to get their test approved.
Do you think we need to look at streamlining in these types of crises approval for things like WHO testing, which is 60 other countries are using, or there were stories in the New York Times about how leading scientists had come up with tests in Seattle that weren't approved? I mean, there's got to be a better way of getting these tests out there.